Okay, welcome back to Online Physical Science. This is our BP1 notes for Unit 1 of Semester 2. Once things load here, my computer's being a little slow. There we go. So a reminder from your learning target sheet, which you can either print out or is in Google Classroom, BP1 is about how do we describe a moving object. And that's what today's notes are going to be on. I like doing notes virtually now a little bit better because then that gives you the opportunity to go as fast or slow as you need to go. I highly encourage writing notes down. There's a actual thing by seeing them, so reading them, hearing them, so having me talk about them, and writing them down. You've now used 3 senses to understand those notes, and that is the most effective way to understand something, is to see it in a couple different ways, to get it in a couple different ways. So I encourage you to write down or type out the notes, but that is ultimately up to you. We'll get going here. Motion. What is motion? Well, motion is a change in position, distance, direction, speed, or acceleration. So anytime that there's a change or that you're moving, it's motion. And one of the most important things when we're talking about motion is to have that frame of reference. We spent a couple days on it. We did a little lab on it. Having that frame of reference, that point of origin, so that everybody knows what you're talking about, which directions you're talking about, where you're looking at that motion from, is really important. Frame of reference is any object or point used to interpret the motion of an object. In our lives, we're naturally inclined to use ourselves as a point of reference, but it can be anything as long as you state what it is or make what it is really obvious. It can also be background objects that we use too, if we're sitting still, stuff like that. And they're just used to describe that motion: position, distance, direction, speed, acceleration. Again. Speed or velocity, we're mostly going to use the word velocity in our class. Simply the distinction between speed and velocity is something you really don't need to get too concerned about until you take physics. So if you take physics, you'll need to know that a little bit better. For the purposes of our notes, I'm going to mention it, but the difference between speed and velocity is not something that's going to show up on the test. You need to know velocity. Velocity is what we're going to focus on more so. So real quick, speed is the amount of distance covered in a given amount of time, whereas velocity is just speed with a direction. So anytime you add that direction to it, it becomes velocity. How we think about stuff, even adding that positive or negative, which often means left or right direction, is all of a sudden velocity. So it kind of becomes arbitrary or not important, that difference between speed and velocity for our class, for our purposes. D stands for change in distance, T stands for change in time, and V stands for velocity. Change in is really, really specific. You need a time frame and a point of origin in order to get those changes, because you can't just throw those differences out there. That little delta symbol is what stands for change in, and it's just a really quick way to say change in. And let's see an example here. Race car accelerates from 18.5 meters per second to 45 meters per second in 2.5 seconds. The change in speed would be the difference between the 18.5 and the 45. Let me see if I didn't put the answer in there. Sorry. But anytime we're looking for the change in, the difference between the two, that's what that means. Quickly trying to do this in my head. Call me out if I'm wrong. What would that be? 0.5 would take me to 9. 6 would take me to 25. So 26.5 meters per second is the difference. I think I'm right there. And lastly, for this note session, units. It becomes incredibly important when you're doing those calculations to have the correct units, to have the units in your work, and so that you have the correct units on the answer. If you don't do that, you're going to get really confused. You're going to have some problems. So basically, distance is measured in meters, miles, kilometers, centimeters. Time is seconds, hours, years. And speed is anytime you have that divided by or per symbol. Okay. So lastly, I know I'm going kind of fast, but you can pause if you need to. Don't get chickened. Chickens is my symbol for units. If you see chicken on paper, it means you forgot the units. Bye.